Hey, it's Sam talking to you about the new moon in Leo that's coming on August 24th. It'll be in the evening of August 24th around 10 p.m. here in the Pacific time. And this new moon is in Leo in the Nakshatra of Magha. And, you know, when we have the new moon, it's when sun and moon come together. So we focus a lot on full moons because they're big and bright in the sky. The new moon, you don't actually see it. But the new moon is when the cycle begins, and then the full moon is the halfway point in the cycle, when we are looking to harmonize the polarity of the new moon. So it's an important thing to understand. Sun and moon come together, and that's when that lesson begins. So it's starting the cycle on the new moon, and the half moon cycle, the full moon is the halfway point. So a lot of bad astrology is done where it says, it's the full moon, it's a great time to begin, blah, blah. It's not a time to begin, because the full moon is the beginning of the waning cycle, when we start to let go. The time to begin is the new moon. And this isn't just opinion. You have like a lot of Indian festivals, they begin on new moons, not full moons. So, new moon in Leo brings together sun and moon in Leo, initiating that lesson for this year. And wherever Leo falls from your ascendant, not your moon, your ascendant, at least that's how I do it, and I think it's correct, obviously, because the ascendant is your physical karmas. The moon is your mind and consciousness. So, like if your ascendant is Pisces, then this is happening in your 6th house. So it's a 6th house cycle. If it's Capricorn, it's an 8th house cycle. If it's Libra, it's an 11th house cycle. So those qualities are getting activated now, and it's the beginning of that time for you. So Leo, of course, that sign falling in that house means that you have that quality of life. Like Pisces have a Leo 6th house nature. Taurus has a Leo 4th house nature, because that's where Leo falls from Taurus. So this Leo passion, enthusiasm, creativity will be active for all of us in the next 30 days or so, but relative to your ascendant, you'll come to experience it in a different area of life. So the Leo cycle is about your personal individuality, your need to embrace the power in your life. Leo is ruled by the sun, so it's where the power comes in our life. So it's an incredibly important sign. So you'll see that each rising sign has central to their nature whatever house Leo falls, because it's the place where the sun comes into their consciousness. So for Gemini, for instance, it's 3rd house stuff, which is about intelligence, communication, flexibility, creativity. 3rd house stuff, individuality. For Cancer, it's 2nd house stuff, which has to do with possessions, values, family. Those things are sources of structure and power for them, because that's what Leo is. It's a sign of power and structure and consistent power in our life. So this new moon in Leo starts, and it initiates that cycle of power for 2014, compelling you to really step into the light of your inspired self. It's the consistent light. It's a fixed fire sign. Fixed fire, it's a fixed sign, it's a fire sign. It's related to the king and the kingdom that we build, and of course that takes consistent, inspired work. It's also a sattvic sign, which is motivated toward giving and sharing rather than enjoyment or protection. And it's also what's called a kshatriya sign, which means it's the royal caste. And it's a quadruped sign, which means it's 4 legs, like a 4-legged animal that's very solid and is about moving forward consistently with courage. The symbol is a lion, of course. So, coming after the Cancer cycle, which is more about feeling and vulnerability and sensitivity, comes Leo, which is about confidence, power, consistent inspiration. Now the nakshatra of this new moon is Magha. It's the section of Leo related to the royal seat itself. The king sits on a throne, and that throne has to do with Magha Nakshatra. It's literally the throne, or what's called the palanquin, which, if you've seen, like, you know, the old movies like Cleopatra, or one of those movies where they're carrying the king or the queen around in the village, you have the servants, you know, with the seated chair, the elevated chair. That's a palanquin. So that's the symbol of Magha. So it has to do with sitting on the throne and your right to be a sovereign. And we all have a quality of sovereignty in our life, a quality of autonomy and sovereignty. It's just a matter of whether we're really using that to its fullest measure. We all have a certain amount of power, but how do we use that power? Do we exploit others? Do we abuse others? Do we command? Do we have a commanding presence with the power we have? These are themes in Magha, and the deity is the Pitris, the divine ancestors. Just like the king is not elected, it's not a democracy, so too, you know, it comes from the lineage. So too, you come from a lineage. It means you come from a family. You were born into it. You just suddenly appeared, as far as you remember. You don't remember being born or choosing to be born. You appeared, and that appearance it comes from your lineage, from your birth family, on the physical plane, your physical body and your physical story in this lifetime. But beyond that, you know, if you just identify with yourself as name and form in this lifetime, then you're just going to identify with your bloodline and your story. If you want to get out of that story, then you need to stop identifying with those people. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. It doesn't mean you have to reject them. It means seeing yourself as more than just a creature of this lifetime. And when that happens, then you can really connect with the Pitris, the divine ancestors, the celestial beings, the sages, the rishis, because that's the true source of your power, of your celestial power. But this nakshatra is also one that connects us to family in this lifetime. So it's a good time to really be a great provider for your family. And again, these are all qualities of Leo. In a worldly sense, Cancer and Leo, these two signs, these two sattvic signs right next to each other, are about mother and father. And of course, mother and father sacrifice for the good of their children, for their family. If you just elevate that another level, a good king and queen sacrifices for the good of the kingdom. And every mother and father, if they're a good mother and father, they build a little kingdom, and they sacrifice, literally, their time and effort and money and their riches, the money they earn and what they have, they give to the kingdom, to the kids. And a bad king or bad mother and father take, and they want to keep the money for themselves, or they resent the kids, or they resent the kingdom for what it takes from them. And this is how Cancer and Leo, these two signs, create problems. When a king or a leader is more selfish, more motivated toward their selfish ends, not motivated to making a good kingdom, then everybody suffers, and they wind up getting overthrown and decapitated and hung upside down in the street and all that kind of stuff. Same is true if our parents, or if we're a parent and we exploit our kids. Again, you know, we have power over the kids when they're growing up. They're like, we're their lord, we're their king. But, you know, later on when they grow up, we see how well we parented them based on whether or not we create enemies out of them. Again, like I said before, how we use our power is a big issue with Leo, especially. So evolving our lineage is very important in Magha Nakshatra. Now we also have Jupiter and Venus in Leo. They came together here this last week. There's a conflict between Jupiter and Venus, and also some high potential, but it's really to evolve the relationship. That's the biggest thing. The biggest connection between Jupiter and Venus is they have a sort of conflict inherent, because Jupiter is about higher things not of this world, and Venus is about things of this world, worldly happiness, worldly pleasure. I did a video last week on Venus and Jupiter in the classical sense. You can definitely look at that. But Venus is also exalted in Jupiter's sign. So this goes to show that really the influence of Jupiter and Venus is to evolve our desires, to evolve our romantic, worldly desires into something otherworldly, where we find happiness for no reason, as my guru Amachi says. Yes, we are here to be happy. You can relax. It's okay to be happy. But we need to find happiness for no reason. And we tend to find unhappiness because we have a lot of conditions and reasons why we're happy. This is analogous to Venus being debilitated in Virgo, where we find a lot of reasons to not be happy. Pisces, where Venus is exalted, ruled by Jupiter, has no conditions. It's not connected to the details of this world. It's about the metaphysical beyond. So that's the highest promise of this Venus-Jupiter. But what happens is that's a very airy-fairy kind of abstract concept. So it's easy for me to say, well, just do that. And like, yeah, right. Try doing that. Try being happy for no reason. And then have somebody come up and like, just make a face at you or just roll their eyes at you and see how unhappy you get. So it's a very high standard, but it's important to understand it so that we know how we're falling short. The way we tend to experience Jupiter-Venus is the conflict between what we want and what we have. It's stated simply. So we tend to notice this very much in our personal relationships with others. We have very high standards, but people fall short of them. This is a big dynamic between Venus and Jupiter. This whole, I did a lot of sort of joking about this sort of soulmate, the evolution of the soulmate into the karma mate. Because not only do we have Jupiter-Venus conjunction, we have Saturn-Mars conjunction, very tight right now. And on the new moon, they're almost exact. So Saturn-Mars conjunction in Libra really shows this karma mate rather than the soulmate. So having the Jupiter-Venus conjunction is trying to evolve the soulmate, because what happens when we have a soulmate idea is we just tend to fall short of the projection, or our partners do. Again, this is the difficult conjunction between Jupiter and Venus, because Jupiter is standards outside this world, and Venus is like a partner. So we tend to look for a partner who is impossible to find, and people just fall short of that standard. That's one of the biggest problems of the Jupiter-Venus. But Saturn-Mars is especially in Libra with an exalted Saturn, is saying, forget the soulmate, we have a karma mate, working hard, working through the karma. So now it's time to evolve the soulmate into the karma mate. There's nothing wrong with karma, because part of the karma is also the good stuff. That's part of karma. Sex and the sweetness and, flowers and chocolate. That's part of it, though. Venus wants that to always be there, and if it's not that, it's bad. And we tend to polarize everything. You're supposed to make me happy all the time, right? So Jupiter-Venus conjunction is still very prominent, especially because it's in Cancer, which is the emotions, and Jupiter is very prominent right now. So our relationships can be definitely falling short of an idyllic standard. Saturn, Mars, and Libra, though, is really bringing together a lot of hard work and a lot of reckoning and humility around our interactions with others and our unrealistic standards and the need to commit to a level of integrity within ourselves and honesty within ourselves about how we truly show up for others, and how the relationships we have on all levels, not just romantic, but with all people, is a result of what we're willing to put into it and how much we're willing to, how much effort we're willing to put in, and where we're willing to say, no, I don't need this. I can walk away from this and I have to. So beyond that, wherever Saturn and Mars are, whatever house that's in for you, is a place of immense work right now, because when Saturn and Mars come together, they work really hard to destroy something weak. So again, Libra is the archetype of two adults compromising with each other. So you may have found some pretty intense dynamics right now, relationship dynamics, and really these things coming to a culmination or situations that started at the end of 2011, especially November 2011, situations that started then really working to a sort of crescendo, climax, reckoning, you know, breaking, even if it reforms later, just sort of, you know, facing a harsh reality around certain ideas and delusions and issues that have begun since the end of 2011 when Saturn first went into Libra. So these are a few ideas about what's happening, but the big cycle that's starting is Leo, the Leo cycle beginning for the next 30 days, focusing on your power, being a good king, and giving generously so that the kingdom may flourish, not just your own personal desires. And now I'm going to talk about this for all 12 of the astrology signs. My members get this forecast. Not only do they get this forecast where I talk about each of the 12 signs on the new and the full moons, but they also get a daily forecast where I talk about all, you know, where I talk about the important factors of each day based on the Vedic Panchanga. So I have hundreds of members, and you can get that daily forecast as well for only 1 penny, and you also get a very powerful chart reading template, about an hour-long video where I show you how to read your chart and show you literally the most important things to start reading your own chart and understanding your nature as well. So you can check that out also, only 1 penny. So either way, I hope you're having a good, intense transit time with the Jupiter, Venus, and the Saturn, Mars, and I hope you have a nice Leo cycle. And leave me some comments. Let me know what you think of this. Thanks.